Hello all. Today we are going to start with a new chapter, that is Protozoa. So first I'll be talking about little bit about the morphology of Protozoa. All Protozoa are eukaryotic protists. So I repeat, they belong to the category of eukaryotes and they are found in the kingdom Protista, hence they are called as eukaryotic protists. They reproduce both by sexual and asexual reproduction. They are single-celled. They have an ability to move at least at some stage of their life cycle. They do not have a cell wall. They are microscopic in size. So the size ranges from 5 to 250 microns in diameter. Most of the protozoas, they are found in moist habitat. So they are either present in sea, soil or fresh water. Now most of the protozoa, they are found in a dormant state. Now this dormant state is called as a cyst. This dormant state is usually present when these protozoas are present in a dry condition, and this the protozoas do because they want to preserve their genetic material. So I repeat, protozoas are usually present in a dormant state called as a cyst. Now parasitic protozoa, they modify their morphology and physiology to cope up with changes in host. So the protozoas which are parasitic in nature, that means they require some kind of host to live. In that cases, as the host changes, the parasitic protozoa also changes their morphology to cope up with the changes in the host. Example of one such protozoa is the malarial parasite. Okay. Most of your protozoas are phagotrophs. That means they feed on particulate matter. So those are called as your phagotrophs. And protozoas are free living forms. Okay. So these are some points that you can jot down for your morphology of protozoa. Most of the protozoas have well developed morphology. They have a well developed cytoplasm, nucleus, plasma lemma, feeding structures, cyst and other protective structures, and certain locomotor organs which helps them in their motility. Now first we'll focus on the cytoplasm. Now cytoplasm is a homogeneous substance which consists of globular protein molecules linked together to form three-dimensional molecular framework. Inside this cytoplasm, you have some submicroscopic protein fibrils which are called as your fibrillar bundles. Now the bundles which are parallel fibers are called as myonemas or microtubule, and they are responsible for the contractility of your protozoa. In some form of protozoas, pigments are present inside the cytoplasm. These pigments can be in green, brown, purple or even rose color. Okay. Cytoplasm is differentiated into two types, ectoplasm and endoplasm. Ectoplasm is the outermost layer which is a gel-like substance, and endoplasm is the inside layer, which is actually voluminous and fluidy in nature. All your structures that are present inside your endoplasm. Now, what kind of structures are present inside the endoplasm? So, they are endoplasmic reticulum, kinetosomes, ribosomes, food vacuoles, Golgi complexes, contractile vacuoles, mitochondria, and your nucleus. Now, let's focus on the nucleus, which is present inside the cytoplasm. Now, all the protozoas contain at least one nucleus. Many protozoas, such as your ciliates, have multiple nuclei. Either the nuclei can be similar in nature or they can have dissimilar nuclei. In ciliates, two different nuclei, if they are present, one of the nuclei is called as the macronuclei, the one which is biggest nuclei is called as your macronuclei, and one which is the smallest nuclei will be called as your the one which is biggest will be called as your macronucleus, and the one which is smallest will be called as your micronucleus. Macronucleus controls your metabolic and regeneration process, and micronucleus controls the reproductive activity. Okay. Now, what are the structural elements present inside the nucleus? So, let's revise again. We have studied what is cytoplasm. Cytoplasm consists of two types, ectoplasm and endoplasm. We are now focusing on endoplasm. Inside your endoplasm is your nuclei. Now we are focusing what is inside the nuclei. So inside the nuclei you have chromosome, nuclear membrane and nucleoplasm. Okay. Next structure that we are going to study is plasma lemma. Plasma lemma. Okay. Cytoplasm covered by membrane is called as plasma lemma. So when your cytoplasm is covered by something from the outside, it will be called as your plasma lemma. The function of plasma lemma is to provide protection. It's a semi-permeable membrane and hence it controls exchange of substances. In some protozoa, plasma lemma is modified and have additional covering which is again used for protection, support, movement, etc. This additional layer is called as a pellicle. P-E-L-L-I-C-L-E, pellicle. Okay. In addition to pellicle, there are also some additional protective layers. So they can be thecae, that is T-H-E-C-A-E. It can be in the form of shells. It can be in the form of loricae, that is L-O-R-I-C-A-E. Now this is made up of organic and inorganic matrix such as calcium carbonate and silica. Okay, so that was all about your plasma lemma and other such coverings that are present on your protozoa. Next is your feeding structures. Okay, now there are different feeding structures with the help of which protozoa can engulf food. These are sometimes called as dopodia. D-O-P-O-D-I-A. Dopodia, which is present in amoeba. It is used for a pseudopodial kind of engulfment. The same like we have macrophageal engulfment, Dopodia does the same thing. Then they have something called as tentacular feeding tubes. So they have some tube-like structures that are coming out of the body. They are called as your tentacles, and with the help of that they can take their food. So this mechanism is basically present in suctorians. 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 Okay. In ciliates, they have a proper well-developed mouth. So this mouth is in the form of an oral groove. Okay. So oral groove, which is called as a cytostome, can directly take up your food. Or they have something called as food vacuole, which is called as your cytopharynx. Even in food vacuole, you can store your food and then later on engulf it. Now, they also have certain protective structures. For example, they secrete certain kind of mucilage from your mucocyst. Okay, they have certain tube-like structures from which they can release toxins. They are called as toxicyst. Okay, then there are something called as haptocyst, which when the haptocyst touches certain prey, that prey becomes immobilized. So it becomes easier for the protozoa to eat that particular food. So that particular process is done by a structure called as haptocyst. Okay. Now when we talk about locomotor organs, they have three basic locomotor organs. So they are pseudopodia, flagella and cilia. Okay. So what is pseudopodia? It is a temporary projection of part of the cytoplasm which do not have a rigid pellicle. So just like your macrophage, it tries to engulf it. Flagella and cilia, they are fine filaments which extends from the cell. They can be 1 in number, they can even go up to 8. And cilia are nothing but short thread-like extensions which are coming from the cell, and it helps in the movement of the protozoa. Okay. All your protozoas are divided into 4 major groups. First group is called as Sarcodina. 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 So all the protozoas belonging to Sarcodina category, they have a pseudopodial structure. Example of such is your Entamoeba histolytica. They are present in your intestine. Second group of protozoa is Magistophora. 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 All the flagellated protozoas belong to the category of Magistophora. Example is your Trichomonas vaginalis. They are present in the vaginal area. Third group of protozoa are Ciliophora. Ciliophora. They have pellicle or cilia. Example is Paramecium. And fourth group is the Sporozoa. The Sporozoa, Sporozoa. They are all obligate parasites. They require a host in which they can live. Example is the Plasmodium causing malaria. So these are the four major groups in which you can divide the protozoas. Okay, so the first protozoa that we'll start with is amoeba. Please have a look at the structure of the amoeba. Now in amoeba, all the cell organelles and the cytoplasm are enclosed by a cell membrane. Okay, it obtains its food through phagocytosis. So we have studied that all your amoeba belongs to the category of Sarcodina. So that is why they obtain their food by phagocytosis. Now because of this, amoeba becomes heterotrophs. That means they are getting their own food. Okay. Amoeba has a single large tubular pseudopod at the anterior end. So if you refer the diagram, it at the anterior end you have pseudopods. Okay, and it also has several secondary ones branching to the sides. Okay, example of amoeba is your Amoeba proteus. Amoeba proteus, which has an average length of 220 to 470 microns while in motion, making it a giant among amoeboids. Amoeba's most recognizable feature includes one or more nuclei. So it can have one or more nuclei, and it has a simple contractile vacuole to maintain osmotic equilibrium. Food enveloped by the amoeba is stored and digested inside the vacuole. This is called as the food vacuole. Amoeba, like other unicellular eukaryotic organisms, reproduce asexually via mitosis and cytokinosis. In cases where amoeba are forcefully divided, the portion that retains the nucleus will survive and form a new cell and cytoplasm, while the other portion dies. Amoeba has no definite shape. Okay. Now there is something called as amoebic cyst. Amoebic cyst. In environments that are potentially lethal to the cell, and amoeba may become dormant by forming itself into a ball and secreting a protective membrane to become a microbial cyst. The cell remains in this state until it encounters favorable condition. While in the cyst form, amoeba will not replicate and may die if unable to emerge out of the cyst form for a lengthy period of time. The disease caused by amoeba is called as amoebic dysentery. It is also referred to as amoebiasis or amoebiasis. It's an inflammation of the intestine which is caused by the parasite Entamoeba histolytica. So amoebic dysentery is caused by a protozoa called as Entamoeba histolytica. Amoebiasis is contracted mainly when you indigest or when you digest this parasite in contaminated food or water. The disease is common when the sanitation is poor. Entamoeba histolytica is available in two forms. Parasite is excreted to the environment as a so-called cyst form. This form is very hard and is analogous to a bacterial spore. This form is designed for longevity, to preserve the genetic material of the parasite when in unfavorable conditions. Now once you get the favorable conditions, such as the intestinal tract of the human beings, the cyst will regerminate and the growth resumes. And the active form of this parasite is called as a trophozoite. Okay, so two forms of Entamoeba histolytica. First form is called as the cyst form. This cyst form is present in the environment. Somehow this cyst form, because of the poor sanitation, enters into the body. Most favorable area is the gastrointestinal tract. Once inside the tract, the cyst form gets converted into an active form, which is called as the trophozoite. It is the trophozoite that causes the symptoms of amoebiasis. Such trophozoites will re-encysst and exit via the feces to become another source of further infection. If the cyst stays in the intestinal tract after being ingested, then they have little adverse effect. However, if the cyst invades the wall of the intestine, ulcers and diarrhea can be produced. Next one that we are going to study is Trichomonas. Trichomonas is a genus of anaerobic protists that are parasites of vertebrates. So they are basically anaerobic in nature. They are parasites which live inside the vertebrates. Species of Trichomonas include Trichomonas vaginalis, that are organisms generally living inside the vagina of humans, and Trichomonas gallinae, which infect the birds. Trichomonas vaginalis is an anaerobic flagellated protozoa. The parasitic microorganism is the causative agent of trichomoniasis. I repeat, trichomoniasis, and it's the most common form of pathogenic protozoan infection of humans. If you see the diagram that is present on the slide, Trichomonas vaginalis is a trophozoite which is oval, flagellated and pear-shaped. It is oval, flagellated and pear-shaped. It is slightly larger than a white blood cell. It measures about 9 into 7 microns. 5 flagella arise near the cytosome, that is the anterior end of the trichomonas. Out of these 5, 4 immediately extend outside the cell together, while the 5th flagella wraps backwards along the surface of the organism. The functionality of the 5th flagella is still not known. There is also a conspicuous barb-like axostyle which projects opposite the 4 flagella bundle, that is, at the posterior portion of the trichomonas there is something called as axostyle. Axostyle is used for attachment to surfaces. It may also cause the tissue damage that is noted in Trichomonas infection. When Trichomonas vaginalis does not have a cyst form, organisms can survive up to 24 hours in urine, semen, or even in water samples. Trichomonas vaginalis lacks mitochondria and other necessary enzymes. Trichomonas vaginalis obtains nutrients by transport through the cell membrane and by phagocytosis. Trichomonas vaginalis is a sexually transmitted disease, and more than 60 million people worldwide are affected annually by this protozoa. Trichomoniasis, which is a disease caused by Trichomonas vaginalis, is a sexually transmitted infection of the urogenital tract, and it is most common in women, while men with this infection can display symptoms of only urethritis. Infection is treated and can be cured with the help of antibiotics such as metronidazole or tinidazole, and should be prescribed to any sexual partner as well, because they are asymptomatic carriers. In ciliates, we are going to talk about paramecium. Paramecium is a single-celled eukaryote. It belongs to the group of microorganisms known as protozoa. There are at least 8 species of paramecium. Out of this, 2 examples are Paramecium caudatum, that is Caudatum, Paramecium caudatum, and Paramecium bursaria, Bursaria, Paramecium bursaria. Paramecium are large enough to be visible to the unaided eye. However, to see the internal structure, we can use a microscope. Structures or the morphology of paramecium. Paramecium contain organized structures called vacuoles that are essentially a primitive mouth, stomach, and excretion system. As the food enters the microorganism, it is stored inside a specialized vacuole which is called as a food vacuole. It's shown in the diagram. These can circulate through the cytoplasm of the organism in order to provide food wherever it is needed. Characteristic of eukaryotes: nuclear material is segregated by a nuclear membrane. Another characteristic of paramecium is the so-called contractile vacuole. This vacuole is able to store water, and then by virtue of the compression of the side arms that radiate from the central vacuole to expel water out of the organism. In this way, the amount of water inside the paramecium can be controlled. On the exterior, there lies a structure or a membrane which is called as pellicle. Pellicle is both stiff to provide support and to maintain the shape of the organism. At the same time, it is flexible to allow flexing of the surface. Also, on the surface there are many hundreds of tiny hairs which are called as cilia. Cilia wave back and forth to act like sweep food particles, and they basically sweep the food particles towards the primitive mouth of the organism, and the cilia are also important in locomotion. Most of them have a macronucleus which controls feeding, metabolism, excretion and motility, and they also have a micronucleus which controls reproduction. Next, we are going towards the next form of protozoa, which is your sporozoa. In sporozoa, we are going to specifically talk about the Plasmodium species. Now, this Plasmodium species are available in 4 forms: Plasmodium malariae, Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium falciparum. Now, this Plasmodium, it has life cycle occurs in 2 organisms. First one is in the mosquito, and second life cycle occurs in the animal body or a human body. So, sexual cycle occurs in the mosquito, and a sexual cycle occurs in the human body. So, basically, the mosquito, which belongs to the Anopheles category, is the carrier for the protozoa. This diagram shows you the life cycle of a protozoa inside a mosquito as well as inside the human body. So, first thing is, there is a female Anopheles mosquito in which the protozoa is present. So, first step is, when this infected mosquito bites the human, sporozoites that are present inside the mosquito, it enters through the bloodstream to the liver of the human. Okay, so from the bloodstream it contains sporozoites which were transferred by the mosquito into the bloodstream. Now these sporozoites enters into the liver of the human. Second step is, sporozoites undergo schizogony in liver cell. So sporozoites from the bloodstream enter the liver. Inside the cells of the liver, they divide and become merozoites. Okay. Third step is merozoites are released into the bloodstream from the liver, and now they can infect the new red blood cells, that is your RBCs. Fourth step is, once your merozoites start infecting the RBCs, merozoites develops into a ring stage inside the blood cell. Now, inside the blood cell, the ring stage later grows and divides, again producing merozoites. This was the fifth step. In the sixth step, merozoites are released when red blood cells ruptures. Some merozoites infect new red blood cells and some develop into male and female gametocytes. So again, as a recap, an infected mosquito bites the human being. While biting, it releases the sporozoites inside the bloodstream of the human being. From the bloodstream, it reaches your liver. Inside the liver cells, sporozoites get converted into merozoites. Once the number inside your liver cells increases, these merozoites are released again back into the bloodstream, where they enter, or rather damage your RBCs. Inside the RBCs, they form a ring-like structure and start dividing again into merozoites. When the merozoite number inside the RBCs gets high, the merozoites rupture the RBCs. That is why this is the stage which can be observed under a microscope when you do a blood test for malaria, ruptured RBCs. So merozoites are released when blood cell ruptures. Some merozoites again can infect new blood cells. That is why your RBC numbers goes down in your malarial infection. And these merozoites can become a male and a female gametocyte. Now, this is the cycle that is present inside a human body. So, this phase is called as the asexual reproduction that is taking place inside a human body. Now, when a mosquito bites such human being, which is an infected human being, the male and the female gametocytes which are present in the bloodstream of the human being enters into the mosquito. Okay, inside the mosquito, this male and female gametocyte can fuse and form a zygote. This zygote is present in the digestive tract of the mosquito. Okay, this resulting sporozoite, which is present in the digestive tract of the mosquito, can migrate to the glands of the mosquito, and from these glands of the mosquito, this mosquito is now ready to infect another human being. So this is how the cycle of malarial infection goes on happening.